I'm Joy Doreen Bira. Welcome to Africa Speaks. Happy International Women's Day to women across the continent and beyond. And that is from the rural woman all the way to the top. Your struggles and achievements are celebrated. Now let's begin by taking a look at web setting. President Uhuru Kenyatta of Kenya has announced that he will take a 20% pay cut to help reduce the wage bill. Kenya's cabinet ministers will also have their pay reduced by 10% and their foreign trips kept to a minimum.
I've come to terms with the fact that the wage bill in this country is well above that which we can afford. And if truly we are to achieve the objectives of Vision 2030, if truly we are to be able to transform our nation, this is an area that we have to look at and give great thought to.
Kenyatta asked members of parliament who are among the highest paid in Africa to accept pay cuts as well. Kenya government spends close to $4.6 billion every year.
My deputy and I will take a 20% pay cut, and our cabinet secretaries and principal secretaries have accepted a 10% pay cut with immediate effect.
The International Criminal Court has convicted Jermaine Katanga, a Congo rebel leader, of charges including murder and pillage over a deadly attack on a village, but acquitted him of rape, sexual slavery, and using child soldiers. Katanga, nicknamed Simba by his men, is only the second person convicted since the court was established in 2002. Those seem to be the big stories around Africa right now. And speaking of pay cuts, I don't know how the members of parliament are going to take this one, knowing they're among the highest paid on the African continent. But now let's take a look at CLIck. Now, each year, International Women's Day is celebrated on the 8th of March, and the first International Women's Day was held in 1911. Thousands of events occurred to mark the economic, political, and social achievements of women. And here's CLIck for today. On CLIck, Inspiring Change is the 2014 International Women's Day theme, and this encourages advocacy for women's advancement everywhere, in every way. It calls for challenging the status quo for women's equality and vigilance, inspiring positive change. This picture here shows a woman and just how much she's capable of doing in the rural Africa. But also we celebrate the rising stars in Africa, and this week's rising star is Lupita Nyong'o. All right, now the latest lineup of young African entrepreneurs has yielded 9 Kenyans, almost a third of the total number, making the cut to rank among the leading 30 upcoming business gurus of note in Africa. Among these young entrepreneurs is a dollar millionaire actually, and a Kenyan billionaire, that is Heshan De Silva, and he is live in studio with us today. And like what we normally do, today we're really trying as much as possible to inspire the young generation, the youthful generation across Africa. He's 25 years old, but what he has achieved could be a lifetime for some people, or could take a lifetime for some people. Well, join me in welcoming Heshan De Silva to the KTN Africa Speaks studio. Thank you so much for joining us. I am so inspired by you. You know, I read your story. I have done a lot of research about you, and the more I read about you, it seems like there's a lot of inspiration that we can pick from you. So who exactly is Heshan De Silva outside of what we have read?
Extremely shy, very, very quiet and reserved, and I tend to listen a lot. I don't like speaking a lot in groups or anywhere, and that's when you get to learn from people. So yeah, very quiet and very shy.
Oh, okay. So the story about Heshan De Silva, some people think it could have been magic, you know, that you are 25 and a billionaire in Kenya, a dollar millionaire. A lot has been achieved. But just give me a background of how all of this began. Where would you actually say your success began?
I think the turning point was dropping out of university in the States and coming back to Kenya and not being able to find a job. I think that reality, when I applied for jobs that were in the 12,000 shilling a month range and I was being rejected by them, that reality really hit home, that this world owed me nothing. And as soon as I learned that for myself, I realized that whatever I achieved had to come from me and my efforts, and that's how it all began.
Wow. All right, now I would like to hear from you, especially knowing that maybe you've said this over and over again, but I'm sure we'd like to hear, for the sake of the people who are watching from outside of Kenya, what is your story? What is your background? What schools did you go to? And where did you actually have a breakthrough to come to all of this that is happening to you today?
Yeah, I grew up in a above normal Kenyan family, I mean, I would never say that we were average at any point, but to say that we were upper class would have been a massive stretch. My parents worked extremely hard to give us opportunities to go to good schools, Banda for preparatory school and Roslyn Academy, the American school, for high school. And these schools naturally give you a lot of exposure to many different things that I don't think local schools quite do give you. But that being said, I got into university in Miami at 16, and I threw away my chance. I said yes to one drink, and it was yes to every single drink after that. And I like to tell people, my Miami is someone else's Nairobi. You don't need to go abroad to be exposed to the freedoms that youth and university bring. And I fell victim to that. So yes, drinking was a big part of that, trying to play catch up with people. My parents could give me $200 spending money for my time in the States, and that's dinner for many of the kids who were there. So I had to find a way to make some extra cash, and that was doing research papers for people. Is that perfectly legal? No. But I was a kid who was trying to make ends meet, and you find a way, and that was the way that we thought was viable for us, and that's what we did. But when you start earning quite a bit of cash, when you're young, you start spending it equally as fast. Nicer clothes, better nightclubs to go to, all kinds of things, and obviously more to drink as well. Drinking very quickly led to drugs, and drugs was cocaine and heroin, and when you've slipped that far, naturally your grades are pretty terrible.
So this was at 16?
17 by the stage.
Yeah. Wow. And then, so when you got into drugs, I could tell by this time you were not saving up anything. You were just getting the money and spending it, buying meth or buying alcohol. I don't know, what was it, whiskey?
Well, it was never meth, but coke and heroin were the big things over there. At the time, alcohol, anything that will do it. And I was in debt heavily with people that you don't want to be in debt with, drug addicts and older people who could buy you the alcohol for you because it's 21 in the States and all sorts of stuff. And then depression kicks in. And all of these drugs, all the alcohol, they're all depressants at the end of the day. It gets you high for a moment, you come down and you're feeling worse about yourself when you're back to reality. So you drink again and you drink again to keep that feeling going. And yeah, one day it all caught up and it ended up in me trying to kill myself.
Wow. All right, in case you're watching us, we are using the hashtag #AskDeSilva for any questions that you would like to know or pose to, Heshan De Silva. You can use that hashtag #AskDeSilva, and he will be answering all of these questions. And, well, you can also tweet us at KTN Kenya or at Joy Doreen Bira, and his Twitter handle as well is at Heshan De Silva. Now, from this point where you turned out to be an addict, I'm thinking school became very tough. You started failing your papers. What happened from that point on?
Shame. School wasn't tough at all because I just decided not to go to class anymore. And it was a terrible place that I found myself in. But alcohol, drug addiction, drug abuse, it alters your perception of reality. You think that what you're doing is okay, you'll find a way through, whatnot. And one day reality catches up with you that, you have straight Fs. You're going to fail out of school at some point, and your parents are back in Kenya calling you once a week, every Sunday they'd call me and hoping that you're all right. And you're putting on a nice voice and whatnot on the phone and saying everything's okay, and you're probably still a little bit drunk. That was the reality. So yeah, one night I decided enough was enough. The shame that I had brought upon myself and my family, this perceived shame that I believed existed, wasn't what the life had been given. And that was how far gone I was. I believed that people would rather have me dead than have me with straight Fs.
Wow. So your parents picked you up from the United States, brought you back home, then you had to go to South Africa as well for rehab, and then came back to Kenya. When you came back to Kenya, what was life like? Did you try to get into employment? Did you want to go back to school? What happened from that point?
During my time in rehab especially, I became reacquainted with my faith. We were always Christians, but it was a Sunday Christian, you know? You go to church for 2 hours on Sunday, and then the rest of the week you sin freely, and then you go back and you repent. That's who we were. But when I was in rehab in South Africa, it became very real to me. Faith became alive. Every room that you go to, every moment that you live, you choose to be positive, you choose to be hopeful and optimistic and not negative and down in the dumps. And that was the mindset that I'd been switched to. And I saw opportunity everywhere, and I saw hope, and that's why I applied to all of these jobs. And I came back. I always wanted to work in a hotel. And I figured my chance would be as a kitchen assistant, because if they gave me that one chance, I'll be able to rise. And it never worked out. I applied to 15 places in Nairobi, and then 15 rejections. So you have this optimistic self, and then you're just hit with rejection after rejection for a 12,000 shilling a month job. It makes you see life very differently.
So you applied for jobs from the lowest all the way to the highest job, and then nobody called you?
Yeah, absolutely no one.
So what did you do from that point?
Well, I was volunteering at this home in near Athi River, Hardy Trust. It's a home that takes in boys, gives them a new lease on life, and educates them and feeds them. And because I'd been clean for a while now, I was helping them through that stage. Because the earliest stages of getting clean are the hardest. It's the easiest point to relapse.
Right.
So I was helping with that, and 3 guys had this incredible idea on insurance. And I was like, hey, sounds like a good idea. I had no idea what this world even was, you know. I knew very few people who were insured. You know, life was...
How old were you at this time?
I mean, some time had passed. I was 21 by this stage. And yeah, so we were going around asking different insurance companies whether we had a chance with this and whatnot, going to different receptionists all over the place, and always being told, email this or call this, and you wait months. So it became our job to try and make this work, and that's what we did.
Okay, there's a question here coming from Moses Obanda. What business does Heshan De Silva do, and how do you make your money?
Well, today we're venture capitalists. We have to give ourselves a name, but it's heavily leaning on social economics and angel investing and all kinds of things. Basically, we finance the bottom of the pyramid. People who earn $2 or less per day. If you have an idea, a viable idea, and you have some experience in it, we'll come in and we'll finance it. We never take a cent from the people who have the idea, because accountability is key in this world. We never want people saying, you know what, you took my money for this. We don't. We have our partners in the US, and they handle all of our financing. Our job is to make sure that your idea is built viably and sustainably with the knowledge and the skills that you have, so that you can employ 3 or 4 people very quickly and start scaling from there. We're not looking at the next big thing. I believe lots of great things are just as good. And a business that can sustainably employ a few people is the key to growth in this country.
Great. Let me just take you back a bit to that point where you were just about to burst into success. You got this idea about insurance, and you didn't know much about insurance. So who did you consult? Where did you go? And how did it just turn out to be a very successful business idea?
Yeah, it was incredible. You know, we approached a large mobile phone company here in Kenya, and my gosh, it took months to be listened to. You know, 6 months we eventually waited before we got a meeting. And over that meeting, everything changed. You know, we learned about the IRA, the Insurance Regulatory Authority, and different boards that you had to have. You needed to have an underwriter who was behind you. We had no clue about any of these things, and it was a massive learning curve. And that's when I learned that you need to know your business inside out, especially if you don't have any money.
Yeah.
You need to become a master of it, because then that's where your value is. So yeah, we learned a lot during that stage, but yeah, when we got an underwriter on board especially, that was the key to us growing, because when someone is willing to back your risk, it's very easy to grow.
Great. I would like to know, just like everyone out there who at this point would like to know how you just turned into a millionaire. How did this all spread out, to a point where somebody who probably used to earn about, part of your story, you say you used to earn about $116? Is it $116? Yeah. How did all of that just bust out into millions of Kenya shillings and then into billions of Kenya shillings?
It actually sneaks up on you. When you're working extremely hard every single day, you don't really realize that your worth is slowly increasing, but it did. It was one very good idea in insurance, and as soon as I got the projections from that company saying that we were going to make 120 million that first year, it's like, I'm onto something. By adding value to companies that already exist, there's a market for that. And then came that very basic realization that so many people seem to miss, is that every company on earth wants to make more money. Every single one. Now, if you can approach them and have a viable way that they can make a heck of a lot more money, you now have a worth to them, they have a worth, and it's just a great synergy in that space. If you're not going to make a lot of money for them, but you're going to show up and say, I have this great idea, you don't have that much of a worth. But if you're able to really plug their industry and say, this is how you're going to make more, and instead of fighting them, which costs so much money, working with them, there is a huge market for that, and that's what we did, and that's how I scaled very quickly. As soon as that one projection came through, picked up 3 more ideas, not 1, not 2. I needed to grow as fast as possible.
Right.
And then it's just picking up the phone and calling and emailing and proving to people that you can actually add worth to them. And that's what we did.
Right. So the travel insurance at the moment has got about how big is the clientele at the moment in Kenya? Or does it spread out to Africa?
I think it's spreading out to East Africa. I'm not daily involved in it at all. It's the 3 guys who had the idea who still control it.
Right.
We take very small cuts in all of our businesses. 20 to 30% are usually where we are, because our partners need to make more money, because they have to run it. I'm not the one who's running around running it day in, day out. We finance it, and then we help push it through and accelerate it with different connections, but the day-to-day running needs to be done by these people. I think at its highest, the insurance thing was targeting 10 to 15,000 people a day, which is quite a lot.
10 to 15,000. And with the current De Silva group at the moment, you are financing about 24,000 businesses?
Well, we did 17,000 last year in all the regions that we operate in, and this isn't Kenya only. This year we're doing around 86 every single day, which is incredible. The whole mandate behind what we do is to reduce poverty in this country from 60% down to 40% within 10 years. Now, how can one fund do that without without requiring money from other people? We have great partners in the US, 2 New York-based hedge funds,
right.
and they're fully behind our vision of we don't need to be slapping interest rates onto young people, and we don't need to be doing all of these things, because these all inhibit businesses. How can we make them grow? And the beauty about Kenya is that it's 1940s, 1950s USA, where there's opportunities everywhere. The best thing about a country that isn't developed is that it needs to be developed.
Right.
How can you plug those things? And that's what we're so excited about.
And that's where the opportunity lies.
Absolutely.
Great. And, well, if you're watching us, in case you just joined us, we are speaking to the CEO for DSG Group, that is the De Silva Group. And he's also a venture capitalist. Yes. 25 years old. That's the amazing bit about him. He's a dollar millionaire, and there are a lot of questions that are coming through here. Someone is asking, how does your day normally begin? Do you have a specific formula to living your days? And that is just something I asked you before we actually got on air. So normally normally, how do your days run? You know, we have 25-year-olds as well who are watching you at the moment. What is that formula that you have?
I wake up at 4:30 to 4:45 every morning, and then it's just replying emails throughout, because that's the time frame I get to reply as many emails as I can, and then I head to work. Usually my staff and people are around work at 5:15, 5:30 in the morning, and that's when our day really kicks off. We know exactly how many businesses we're going to be listening to that day. We know how many we want to approve, how many we'll be able to, and everything is planned at that time. Then the whole day is meetings, meetings, meetings. It does not stop. You break for lunch for a very short while, half an hour, 45 minutes. Back to it, and the day ends work-wise at around 11 at night, every single day, 6 days a week. When you have that sort of work ethic.
4:30 a.m. to 11 p.m.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is when you're working very hard and you're excited about what you're doing, waking up at 4:30 is too late. You know, you actually get this feeling that I have actually missed out on time. The one thing that I cannot get is more hours in my day.
Right.
And if you do have a lot of hours that you just spend idling on Facebook or talking to friends or wondering what you're doing or watching TV,
Right.
I wish I had your hours, you know, because there's so much more that we can all do.
All right, so speak to the 25-year-olds, because I'm sure you say you wake up at 4:30 a.m. There are 25-year-olds, possibly even older, who wake up at around 10 a.m. in the morning, you know, and life goes on normally for them. Sometimes they get up at 1 p.m. and, you know, at the end of the day, they also want to be successful. So speak to the 25-year-old. What would you say to the young generation that would like to be successful, but in one way or another, they do not have access to maybe capital, they do not have access to these opportunities that you have talked about that are seem to be everywhere but cannot be found? Speak to them. What would you say to them?
Wanting success but waking up late have no correlation whatsoever. You know, I mean, if you're not excited about waking up in the morning but you want to be successful, how is that going to ever work out? You know, I mean, you need to be willing to put in a lot of effort. The one commodity that you have plenty of is time. You know, if you're not doing anything and you don't see any opportunities, you have a lot of hours on your hand. Now, how are you going to use these hours? I saw a quote recently which really got me. It was, as young people, we have short-term and long-term. The short-term is very fun. We have parties, we have this, we have that to take our minds off stuff.
Right.
But the more we tend to focus on the short term, the more our long-term vision dies. Because we're so worried about what we're going to do tomorrow, what we're going to wear, you know, all kinds of things like that. Or even on a more macro scale that affects the larger group, we tend to get so absorbed in our day-to-day lives. You know, we get so worried about certain things and we lose focus and vision altogether. You know, and I think there are a few people who have stood out who really have decided, you know what, forget where I'm from, forget how much money I have or that I don't have any parents or I didn't go to the right schools. I'm going to make the most of my life today and not worry about whatever happened back then. If you let what happened back then, I could very easily say, I had a drug problem, I had an alcohol problem, I didn't go to school, I didn't finish, and just be living in that time, or I can let it be there and focus on my day-to-day.
All right.
And I think young people really need to focus on that.
Well, there are a lot of questions coming through here. Someone is saying, how much did you spend to start your group? And someone is saying, is it possible for you to be his mentor? This is Nick Mwangi. But Pete Sixpack is asking, how much did you spend to start your group?
7,500 bob is the amount of cash that I had on me to start it. I didn't have enough money to register my company. You know, that was the reality of it. There was very little money, but adding value to other companies, saw that 7,500 shillings grow into a business that was worth 120 million in its first year, purely by adding value to other people, nothing else.
So I'm thinking a lot of things have come with your success. Tell us about what has happened. I'm sure you have a lot of achievements at the moment. You can handpick a few of them that you can tell us about that can inspire the younger generation as well.
I mean, you know, I used to idolize is a very strong word, but really look up to Chris Kirubi, Vimal Shah, people like this in this country who are giants. You know, I mean, they're very, very big and they've done incredibly for years. so many of us, if we reach some sort of recognition after 1 year, we fade away. We're like, good as it's going to get. These guys have done it for decades, year in, year out, and I'm very lucky to call Chris Kirubi a friend today, because, I mean, just knowing that I can go and spend 2 hours a month with him and just see how he works and whatnot, that's inspiring. Because at his age, he can answer 4 cell phones and be on his computer, and he's so energetic about life and not wanting to stop. There's something that we can all learn from that, irrespective of whatever grievances that we may have. True. There's a lot we can learn from people who are willing to work very hard, and that's the lesson that I take from them. So yes, appearing on a Forbes list with those two, the top 30 under 30 on Forbes, and there was this one Nigerian publication that named me the 7th most influential person in Africa last year. 7th
most influential person,
which is nuts, right? I mean, that's crazy. You don't ever join this world to be a part of that, but it's fun when things like that show up.
So you feel good about that you inspire somebody out there.
Absolutely.
I would like to know from you, so when you received your first 120, I don't know what your cut was on there, what did you use it for? Because normally I get the feeling that our generation, we get money and we want to spend it, buy a nice car, buy, rent a cool apartment. They always find something to spend money on, and then saving comes as maybe one of the last options. How did you manage your money? What did you do with it when you realized I'm a millionaire? What did you do?
When you're a shilling millionaire, it means very little. That's the reality, right? Because if you want to buy a very nice car, you don't have enough money yet. That's the reality of it. I think we need to get into a culture of saving, because the more you save or the more your money works for you, the better off you are. I hate it when my money does not grow for me. If I'm just spending it on a lifestyle or spending it on XYZ, that's never really growing for you. Unless you do reach a point where you want nicer things, that's very natural, and it's normal to want a better car and a nice house, forget renting an apartment, I'm going to buy that house. These are all things that we've all been through.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you're only ever going to get there if your money is always working for you.
Yes, so back to the question, what did you do with your
it went on to finance all of these other businesses, because I did not have access to loans from banks, I couldn't ever go to a bank and say I need a personal loan. I had no security, there was none of that stuff. So as soon as I got any money whatsoever, it always went back in, and that's the same way our fund works today. Very rarely do we have money sitting around not doing anything. It always has to be out there working for us.
Great. Well, you dropped out of college, I should say, in the United States. Do you think of going back to school, knowing you don't have a degree on you?
I think university is for some people. It clearly wasn't for me. I could never sit in a class and listen and take notes. Today I sponsor a bunch of kids to school, and these guys are so bright. One of them got a 422 on his KCPEs recently, and he had pages and pages of notes that he had taken and whatnot. And I was like, I have never taken a note in my life. Taking books of notes in classes and whatnot, never. I was pretty good at testing and things, but I never had the energy or the enthusiasm to do that, and that school is for some people. It just wasn't for me.
So no plans for you to go back to school?
Not at all, but if you do have the opportunity to be in school, grab it.
Okay. And when you were in school, you were studying, what exactly were you studying?
I had no idea what I wanted to study. That was another problem, because 1 week it's international relations, and it's English, and it's politics, and all kinds of things, right? Terrible time to go to school if you don't know what you want to do, and that was all me. I was just so unfocused that I had no clue, and that unfocused self has kind of lent itself to business today, because I have ADHD. My attention is very short, my attention span. So it's exciting when you're in multiple different businesses, you're in fashion, and then you're in filming, and then you're in agribusiness. It's all quite exciting.
Great. There are a lot of questions that are coming through here, but let me just go through a few of those tweets. Hank, or at Odida Jr., is saying, I can say I'm too challenged and quite ashamed hearing what De Silva is saying. And William Ngure is saying, how can I send my innovation proposal to De Silva's organization? And what does it take for you to actually look out for a business and say, you know, this is what we can finance?
Well, what we ask people to do is to email in on our website. There's a very clear info email address on there. The problem is that we have a 4,000 person backlog that we have at the moment, which we're trying to clear. That should take a month to a month and a half or so, and then we'll be accepting new ones. There's no limit to our acceptance, it just means being patient. But the keys are that it has to come from the poorest people in Kenya, or it needs to directly impact them. Now, direct impact does not mean I'm going to employ 5 or 6 people, whatnot. No. How can your business actually add value to people's lives, the masses? Because you'll find that while you're lifting them up, your market is huge.
Yes.
Your market has cash that they're ready to spend on certain things that will improve and enhance themselves. Why not target them? So that is the whole basis of everything that we do. We're always looking to target the masses. I really dislike niche businesses. So that is one of the key criteria as well. But while you're waiting for us to get back to you, I really want people to never just be sitting around doing nothing. With your means, with the access to capital that you have, with the access to knowledge or facilities that you have, you need to always be looking to grow.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. We are running out of time, but there's so many questions, unanswered questions. But remember, the hashtag is Ask De Silva. If he cannot answer them here because of time, I'm sure he can answer them on Twitter. And that is why we're asking that you use that hashtag Ask De Silva. And someone is saying here, school is amazed that you're saying school is for some people. But, you know, one of the things that always inspires people is that the best brains, the most successful brains in this world, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, these are people who didn't complete college. And that is why people are asking, is it school that works for people best, or being in school?
I think it's very relative. Because there's some people who have dropped out of school and become massively successful, but there's some who have dropped out and who have not. And the vast majority are people who have not. In the same breath, there are many people who have finished university and who have become incredibly successful, and many who haven't. Right. It's all up to you and your vision for your life. Wherever you find yourself, whether it's in school or out, your life depends on you and the energy that you're willing to put into it. Nothing else.
Right. I would like you to wind up by just saying something inspirational to the younger generation, those of them who are in school, those of them who are watching you, maybe they're below 25, and there's some who are above 25, but just speak to the African youth. Tell them something that they can always look up to, something that can lead them to success.
Never see a job as the light at the end of the tunnel. Yes, all of us are not meant to be entrepreneurs. Many of us are going to be employees, but never see that as your inhibiting factor. You're going to always have opportunities to grow. They're always around you. We're in a country and in a continent which has so many things that are missing. Our middle class don't know what washing machines are. They wouldn't even think of buying one for their apartments, but the lowest class in America already have them. That means that our stage of development is still waiting to arrive upon us, you know, and now we can either be a part of that, or we can wait for future generations to be a part of that. I choose to be a part of that today, because when you have a population that is growing, the opportunities for growth are incredible. We have an East African community, basically, which is so big. Right. So many people who have needs every single day. We have land in Kenya which isn't being farmed correctly, and we have 2 billion people in the East who are waiting to be fed. The opportunities are everywhere, and it's up to us to seize that. Never accept an excuse, never give an excuse. You know, you need to always find a way and not a reason why you couldn't. And when you have that mindset and that desire, and you couple that with working very hard with the facilities and the options that you have around you, you'll find that success will follow that.
Great. Well, Heshan De Silva, CEO for the De Silva Group, and he's a venture capitalist. 25 years old, totally inspirational, and I cannot go through all of these tweets, but I would like to say thank you so much for making time.
Thank you so much.
I made your busy 6 days a week schedule to make time come speak to us and inspire some people. That is really amazing. Now, if you want to continue this conversation, asking any kind of question to De Silva, you can use the hashtag #AskDeSilva, and he will be able to answer those questions for you on Twitter. My name is Joy Doreen Bira. Thank you for watching, and keep it KTN.